This is David Cowen with Careers and the Business of Law. It's the end of the year. It's December. It's 2025. I hope this episode remains evergreen. We'll see what happens in the future. But today I have the pleasure of being with Jacqueline Schafer, who is the founder and CEO of Clearbrief. She also serves as a lecturer at Columbia Law School and has a marvelous program there. I don't know if that's going to continue, but I think she's just finishing it up. She's going to tell us a little bit about it. If you don't know Jacqueline, what is so impressive, and I'm just going to do a little intro, which is not something I usually do, but I found this interesting. In 2021, she wins the Apex Award for Legal Innovation from Washington State. In 2022, the Fast Case 50. In 2022, from the ABA, the Women of Legal Tech. 24, the Law Dragon Leading AI and Tech Advisors Award. And to top it all off, in 2025, she wins the Legal Week Innovator of the Year Award. So it is with great pleasure that I introduce Jacqueline Schafer to the Careers in the Business of Law audience. Jackie, how are you?
I am great. Thank you so much for having me and for that kind intro.
Like when you look back on that, right? So I know you went to Boston College and you went to the University of Pennsylvania, top schools, obviously a phenomenal background. You read that and go like, oh yes, that's exactly what I thought was going to happen to me when I was 7 years old.
Well, I always thought I was going to be, like a Broadway star. That was my that was my dream. So, we got a little off track, but no, I mean, it's been amazing. Just I think I started my career at Paul Weiss as a litigator. I spent about a decade in practice. I worked for the government. I was in-house counsel. And so I've always loved practicing law, and I'm not one of those legal tech founders who was like, I hated it and I knew I needed to innovate. I really just have always had this very strong desire to have a bigger impact on the problem. And so I remember just being so frustrated at every job. I'm like, why do we have to do this like horrible, tedious, you know, checking process at the end? Why is it always this nightmare scramble before you get something filed? So that's what really drove me to start my company back in 2020 when I was kind of learning about AI. And it's cool to see that, the same problem of worrying about accuracy, worrying about, the court finding a mistake that you didn't intend, like that has never been more salient than it is today with generative AI. And it's really driving our product roadmap and adoption.
Where does the entrepreneurial bug come from? Where does the courage come from? So I always find this really interesting with entrepreneurs who say, I'm going to take this chance. You're at Paul Weiss. You're like, that's okay. I mean, that's the top of the pyramid for a lot of people. And you're like, I'm going to go take the risk. So where does that courage come from? Did you have financial backing? Did you bootstrap it on your own? Like, where did that come from? And where does the entrepreneurial bug from? Was it your dinner table at home? Did you gather it along the way? Did somebody breathe wind into your sails? How does that happen?
That's so funny. I think what's funny is my parents, and especially my dad's side of the family, they have furniture stores. Growing up, I saw my parents working at their furniture store, and I was just always like, I never want to be an entrepreneur. I'm like, I want to work for the man, like behind a desk. Thank you very much. And I was always just so I loved school, I loved writing, I loved getting that 100% check mark on everything, and so. But as I was practicing as a lawyer, I always, at every job I ever had, I was always like, hey, we could do this better. What if we did this creative idea? And the answer is always no, 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 we can't do it. And I feel like in every role I was in, I was able to sort of figure out a way to get around the no, no, no. But I think eventually, after a certain point of my career, and it actually was before I left my in-house role in 20, around 20, when was it, like 2019? I was, I wanted to just like stay, working for the man kind of thing, but I felt like I can't ignore this. I went to my company, and I was telling them about AI and how I thought it would change everything. I wrote a law review article about it. And I felt like I couldn't get people to listen and understand. And so I was like, you know what? It's time. I have to just do this. I have to start a company and show them what I can do. And that has been very exciting. And no, I'm not independently wealthy or anything. Definitely bootstrapped the company for a while before I raised our, a first round in 2021. And it's been awesome to see it grow.
And what it reminds me of, and you say it the way you do with such passion, it reminds me of Mike Maples and his book. I'm blanking now. Mike Maples, Pattern Breakers. So he writes this book, Pattern Breakers, about those entrepreneurs that are that have a better chance of success. Right? Are those that solve a problem that they are having. I'm having this problem in the moment. I can see the future, and I'm going to be the first adopter. And so off they go, and then they find co-conspirators. Right? He talks about the power of co-conspirators, and then that is what leads to this groundswell. That seems to be a little bit of what happened at Clearbrief from what I've heard. I don't know very much about that story. We're going to find out right now. Did you get some co-conspirators and early adopters, and one thing led to another?
Yeah, I mean, I did a pretty classic, approach. I didn't quite realize, at the time that I was maybe doing overkill for what a lot of entrepreneurs do, but there is this period of customer discovery that you're supposed to do in the startup phase. And what I did was I went out and I made a spreadsheet and I probably talked to about 200 lawyers and litigators and in-house and kind of gave them my initial idea and, asked for their feedback in a very neutral way. And I got a lot of, people that were like, "Oh, that's a terrible idea. You should go back and be a lawyer. Like, don't do this. This is too risky." Like, and then I got plenty of people that were like, "Yeah, if you built that, I would love that. I would love to use that." And I got different ideas of how to kind of tweak and shape my original idea. And by the end of it, I had this list of 200 people that I felt like, okay, if we can build something, I could go back to them and test it. And I did get, this some amazing early feedback because when I first started the company, I hired an engineer to just kind of help me build a prototype that
Mm-hmm.
wasn't a full app that people could interact with. It was more like, okay, if you send me your brief and you send me your record of the facts that you referenced, I will, Clearreef will run it through our algorithms and code, and we'll give you back a report that will show you the mistakes. And so I remember doing that with a big law partner who was like, okay, this was publicly available, go for it. And it was a very prestigious firm, and the partner was just didn't know anything about technology, but I was able to show him like, hey, look, here are 3 sites that you pointed the judge to the wrong page, according to Clearbrief. And he went back and he was like, oh my God, we had like, a 6-year associate, we had multiple first-year associates on this. None of them caught these things. So that was kind of one of the early indicators. I was like, yeah, this is a thing. We're on to something. And, you need those different, feedback responses to keep you going in the early days.
Who was? Yeah, there's no question about that. You need sometimes you just need somebody in the right time in the right place to give you a little push and a little acknowledgement and a little encouragement, a little recognition, and then you like, I can do this, and then you fall off and into the abyss, which hopefully lifts you up, which it has for you. Who was that first? Who was the first big break? Do you want to, or two or three? Do you want to give a shout out to like, but not
Oh,
for this?
let's see. My first big break, I probably was Mark Britton, who is the founder of Avo, and he lives in Seattle, here in Seattle as well. And it was through kind of in those early days, I was just doing as much networking as I possibly could. And I through a connection, through a connection, through a connection, I got a meeting with Mark. And I remember the first thing Mark said, it was like, look, everyone always wants me to invest in legal tech. I don't do it. I'm not going to do it. Like, but I'm happy to talk to you. And so I was like, okay, all right. And I started telling more about Clearbrief. And by the end of that first call, he was like, all right, send me a deck. And like, and of course I sent him this horrible deck that I'd made that was just atrocious. And but Mark and I like just, definitely had a good, just a great creative sort of rapport. And that helped me so much in the early days when I was trying to, how do I shape and explain this to investors who are not lawyers? And so Mark was just hugely influential in those, early days of starting the company. Because you just don't know what you don't know. When I know all about the law, I didn't know about the VC world and how to explain the idea to folks who don't know anything about drafting.
I love it. Let's. I want to shift gears here a little bit and talk about the state of the industry. Can we do that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Let's say that you and I are going to get in a car, and we're gonna head down to let's be in New York if you don't mind. We're going to be in New York. We're on the East Coast, and we're going to head down to Disney. We're going to head down to Orlando, and I'm curious to know if we were in a car right now, and we're talking about the rate of change. What's the rate of change? How fast are we going? What are the speed bumps in front of us, and how fast do you think will actually go? And of course, I'm talking about adoption and adaption and the rate of change and technology and how fast it is. And, so many people say the car is so much faster than the road it can travel on right now. And the car is so much faster, meaning the engine and the tech, so much faster than the driver can handle it or the road can handle it. Where are we on the road between New York and Orlando? How fast are we going, and what are the speed bumps ahead?
Sure. Well, okay, so first I want to say what's my street cred for answering this question? So Clearbrief, we're, the leading litigation drafting platform in Word. We're used and adopted by, the AM Law, or I think 45% of the AM Law 20. We're used across the AM Law 100. We're also uniquely used by courts, government agencies, and in-house teams, including Microsoft, which I'm especially proud of. So we're used for litigation drafting, for checking mistakes, displaying facts, and our platform has both classic like NLP AI tools that don't use generative AI, and it has a curated menu of generative AI tools. So every day I'm talking with partners, associates, paralegals. As the product leader, I stay very closely involved with our end users, and so I do feel like I have a great pulse across the AM law, especially in the law firm setting of where things stand. And so what I'd say is, of course, the large language models are amazing and they're getting better and better. The maybe you said in your analogy like the road, what can the road support? I think some of the challenges and the blockers right now have to do with, the volumes of data that the supporting architecture can actually
Mm-hmm.
support in order to be used with the large language models. So we have put just a ton of work into that piece. And so it's interesting. Like I talk with Big Law customers, and they're like, "Oh wow, we in Harvey or co-counsel, we can't use the volume of data that we can use Gen AI on in Clearbrief, that kind of thing." But I think the other big sort of point of friction right now is the amount of time it takes to verify the AI output is in most tools is not worth the squeeze, because if you're introducing, it's like giving something to an intern that you're like, okay, well, I'm going to have to deeply know this and speak to this. And if I find out, oh, it's going to take me like 5 hours to verify what the intern did, I'm going to be like, this is not a project for an intern. I have to know this stuff myself. I'm going to do it manually. So what we have focused on at Clearbrief is how do we make verification faster, meaningful, so that you can actually get that return on investment, that ROI from using generative AI. So the whole design of Clearbrief, because we were so focused from day one on catching mistakes, that's been so it's a lucky, thing that was the problem I focused on, because the design of Clearbrief is a split screen in Word. Your Word doc is on the left, Clearbrief is on the right-hand side of Word, and it just interacts with your Word doc, including for the Gen AI tools. So if I'm creating a timeline from, 20,000 documents, I can insert that timeline into Clearbrief, and every single sentence has a citation where the source displays in Clearbrief on the right-hand side. So it highlights in Clearbrief the part of that page that gave rise to the summary sentence. So it's basically making it super, super fast to check. It's making it so that I can now share that Word doc with someone else, like a partner, and they can also see that source really fast if they want to check. They don't have to go log into this app or this database. It's all right there linked with the Word doc. So that's kind of our innovation and where we're putting our focus.
So I can see where that's an easy adoption for big law, mid law, small law. Like I get the law firm side of this, right? So let's take the law firms out and let's go to the corporate side for a second. It would seem to me that there might be an audience there as well. Is that a growing audience for you? And so from where I'm sitting, right, I'm watching and listening to, and my clients are saying to me on an ongoing, regular basis that they're insourcing more than ever because they can. right? And what's your sense on that shift in the market towards big corporate law insourcing? And
Yeah.
insourcing is like a really clumsy word. I didn't mean to be so clumsy, and I didn't mean it, but that's a starting point. Like, let's call it insourcing, even though it's more sophisticated than that.
Yeah, I think insourcing is a good way to frame it. It's basically I'm seeing, and again, my target audience with Clearbrief, who we talk to, are the people who handle litigation and in-house
Litigation, right?
folks who manage and run investigations, which are essentially pre-litigation, as well as
Yep.
the folks who have to manage outside counsel with litigation. And they are realizing if we can, the main audience that we've been working with in-house, and we're used by some of the largest global companies for their international, teams and investigations, where they have a very high volume of investigations. And that work is so similar to the work that litigators do every day, which is around how do I organize the facts? How do I pull out the facts that are the most important? And how do I write up my investigation report in a way that I can share it with the general counsel, with the board, with our outside counsel, the people who need to see the conclusions and the evidence that gave rise to those conclusions. So that's like the biggest problem right now with a lot of investigations is they're not, you and I remember when I was in-house too, it's like someone from HR is like, okay, so legal department, we want to terminate this woman. She just became a really bad employee yesterday, and that was also the day she told us she was pregnant. So can you just sign here, legal? And you're like, oh, wait a minute, like, what evidence do you have for any of this? And what are your, what documentation do you have? Where's the documents? So Clearbrief is all about finding a source, finding a piece of documentation for every single statement that you're going to conclude in that investigation report, in that, termination decision memo. So that if later someone goes back and they're like, okay, well, you said you did this investigation and you found there was no harassment. Did the GC look at any of those emails and do kind of a spot check to see if they agree with that conclusion? And actually turns out when you look at the email, you're appalled. And this definitely should not have been, concluded that there was no harassment or whatever it is. So we're trying to bring that transparency into that process and also do it much faster. And so that's something where um, for the investigations problem, we're helping them really cut down the time it takes to get through that huge volume of investigations, and then the end product is much more user friendly. And then when it comes to certain litigation tasks that you might, pay outside counsel to do sort of the first chunk of your, perhaps like you're responding to an EEOC complaint or something like that. Every time you call outside counsel, it's going to be at minimum $20,000. Like just touch that phone and it's $20,000 like for them to respond to you. So there are things that you could do. For example, in Clearbrief, you can if you
Well, I
have
don't want to do the clear brief. I'm
yeah.
going to pause there. I just want to. I
Okay,
want to do the
sure.
macro. I want to do the
Yeah.
macroeconomics of this. Right. So if we go macroeconomics, where are we? If we're
Yeah, so
insourcing,
macroeconomics,
how does the
that's
macroeconomics change?
yes. So I think if you're insourcing, you will start bringing in the sort of fact specific things that you're closer to that anyway when you're in-house. You know kind of the people involved, the volume of data that's at stake. And so you can kind of start with AI making some different choices about what volume of data you're going to give to your outside counsel, because that's part of where the costs start.
Yeah.
Also, I'm seeing them make decisions about maybe there's a portion of this work that we could do in-house before we hand it over to outside counsel. And when it comes to litigation, most in-house teams, though, they do not want to go to court. I think that's an area that's extremely resistant to insourcing is going to court, keeping on top of every litigation filing and response deadline and those kinds of things. They want outside counsel to do that. But there's
Well,
other aspects that they can bring in-house.
so let's go with that. Like if insourcing right now, if that conversation, right? I want to invest, right? So I'm Fortune 1000, Global 1000, could be smaller than that, of course, and it's and my tech investment, right? My AI investment, my tech investment. Forget services for a minute. We're just kind of talking tech right now. I've got some major players. How do you see this landscape shaking out, right? So who are the major players? So like, we talk about the Mag 7, right? In the tech world, Alphabet, Amazon, Apple, Microsoft, Meta, Nvidia, Tesla. And you've got OpenAI and Oracle and AMD, IBM, Palantir, IBM, Anthropic, Salesforce, right? Like that's your Mag 7. Take any one of them, if you will. In our world, right? Like let's put this together. I'm going to ask you to put your Columbia professor's hat on for a moment, okay? And say, okay, who would we have, right? We would have Relativity, we'd have Clio. I'm going to put in Harvey and Lagora just because they're in the news these days, right? So that is a decision that you're making. Who do you want to throw into the mix?
Yeah, I would definitely say, of course, LexisNexis, Westlaw, and my focus a lot in the firms that we talk to, we're focused on outside counsel for, I would say, currently the majority of our customers. And so for them, their document management systems are hugely important to their daily work. NetDocs, iManage. Yeah, and then of course Clearbrief. We are right in there with the tools that are being used, daily as that safety layer. So I would say the bigger picture of what I see with the customers I talk with and the biggest legal buyers in the world is that now at this point they've bought their general purpose chatbot tool. They bought some kind of general purpose chatbot tool. Great. People have tried it, they've experimented with it, and that could be Copilot, it could be any of the ones that you've mentioned. The
Nice
challenge,
shout out to Microsoft as a big customer of yours. I like the way you connect the dots on that. Very nice.
right? No, I mean, I think chatbots have proven to be, a great
For
entry
sure.
point for AI, where it's great for brainstorming, rewording things, summarizing. But with litigation and also with other practice areas where to really transform that work, you have to be that last mile delivery. So that's where Clearbrief focuses. And so they've realized, okay, the worst parts of this whole workflow are actually all around checking things, you know, organizing the source documents, making our tables of authorities, making our exhibits, creating hyperlinks for the court, like this whole nightmare stuff that happens. So we're kind of emerging as the safety layer and the last mile delivery for
Yeah.
litigation. And I think there's
I think the
other
last
companies doing that as well in
the
the
last mile is a great way to put it. I think the last mile is really a very interesting sort of frame. So if you're listening to for the first time, or you're just sort of coming into this space and you're thinking about like where does Clear Brief fit? Where do others fit? There's the initiation phase where things start, and then there's that last mile. The last mile on the internet was the last mile is the biggest challenge, right? It's the 1 yard line, right? So if you're a football fan, you're in the red zone. It's that last yard. It's the last 10. It's that red zone where there's so much friction. And I think there's a lot of competition in the market right now in the red zone. And I'm glad that we were able to spend some time unwrapping that a little bit. I hope the community knows a little bit more about what that last mile looks like from a clear brief standpoint. Question for you, though, is one of my favorite ways to end. We could go for easily another half an hour, but we're bumping up against time. We're in the car. We're going to be driving. I know that you're a big music fan. If you have a chance to meet Jackie on the road somewhere, and you want to introduce yourself, all you really need to do is start talking about jazz or pop music, and Jackie's going to be all over it. I know you've got some new music that you're listening to these days. Who's your favorite net new these days? Because I love to exit with a song. So who shall we exit with?
Yes, it has to be the Beths, Beths, the Beths from New Zealand. Just one of my favorite singer-songwriter, sort of punk rock, high energy bands. And yeah, I've been just listening to them a ton. Saw them perform recently in Seattle, and I love a good singer-songwriter that also, comes with a great beat and keeps you energized and having fun.
So you introduced the Beths to me earlier, just before we got started, and there's two songs that popped up. I love the titles. One is Expert in a Dying Field, and the other is Future Me Hates Me. I love that title. Which one do you want to start with, and tell us just a little bit about it before we get going?
Sure. I think my favorite song by them is Expert in a Dying Field. It's so poignant. It's such a beautiful song and also silly and fun. And it's about I think. I mean, my take on it is that it's about, you're when you are ending a relationship with someone, you are an expert in, in a field that's not going to exist anymore. And what do you do with all this knowledge that you have, about the other person and this deep understanding you have?
The cleverness of that, I just love. Here we go. We're going to listen to a little bit of it.
Can we erase our history? Is it as easy as this? Plausible deniability, I swear I've never heard of it. And I can close the door and ask, but the room still exists, and I know you're in it. Hours of phrases I've memorized.
It's a little Taylor Swifty. It's a little edgy Taylor Swift.
Yeah, you could say that.
I could, you wouldn't.
She's an amazing musician too. Like she plays guitar, lead guitar, and it's so fun to watch this band.
Dying field. How do you know it's over when you can't let go?
How do you know it's over when you can't let go? Honestly, I've got a whole weekend now in front of me to listen to something new. This is the first time I've ever done this. I'm going to do back to backs. Can we do one more? You okay? You okay
Yeah,
on time
let's do it.
Here we go.
Can we also do a karaoke portion?
If I could sing, if you can sing, I can't. This is Future Me Hates Me by the Beths. There's a versatility, and I just really love this band. Glad I could give them a shout out. If Spotify comes to get me, I'm calling on you, Jackie, to be my outside counsel and protect me from the cease and desist.
Absolutely.
Thank you
Clearbrief
so much.
has covered.
There you go. Jackie Schafer from Clearbrief, thank you so much. A very happy new year. I can't wait to see you on the road as we get into 2026. My very best to you, your family, and congratulations on all your success.
Thank you so much.
You're very welcome.
I think I'm pretty smart. I'm not convinced that I can keep myself apart. All in the walls, pick up minutes, and more you can turn up defenseless. I won't happen again. It probably won't happen again. But there's something about it.
If you enjoyed this show, be sure to give us a like and subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or anywhere else you get your shows. And if you want to take your career from now to next, never eat alone.